When we watch a series like Breaking Bad or similar crime shows, it's only a matter of time before we get a scene set in some sort of drugs lab. Now that might be a makeshift meth lab in a trailer way out in the desert, or it could be a state-of-the-art underground facility. But it's a very common trope in that kind of story, which means it's also a very good trope to put into our RPGs, especially when, as is in the case with our Mothership Assault Team 5 campaign, the aim of the party is to go in undercover and disrupt the drugs trade. So, today on Dragon's Teeth, we're going to be reviewing the Cy-Borg module, Drug Raid. Hi, I'm Rob Hoyton. Thanks very much for joining me today. Before we do get into our raids and factories and all the rest of it, if you could do me a favour and click the subscribe button below if you haven't already, that really is very helpful for the channel. Thank you. And also just a reminder, if you're into all things Lovecraftian, weird fiction, cosmic horror and so on, in just a few weeks' time we have the Innsmouth Literary Festival here in oddly moist Bedford. We've got a fantastic lineup of authors, artists, traders, gaming, and of course Innsmouth After Dark in the evening, where it can be revealed there is going to be, for the first time ever, a meat raffle. You have been warned. So please do click the link below to get details of that. Okay, let's crack on with our review. I'm going to use the same format as before. We'll talk a little bit about the background and what the scenario is about. I'll talk about the design and layout, then we'll get into spoiler territory, and we'll finish off by looking at how I adapted this for use in our Mothership campaign. And just as a reminder, you can see each episode of the campaign as it goes up on the Mothership playlist, and the episode for this one should be up in a few days' time. This is the second scenario that isn't specifically a Mothership adventure. Last time we looked at the boarding house at Arkham Street, which is a sort of pulp horror Call of Cthulhu adventure. This time we're back in sci-fi territory, but this is for a game called Cy-Borg. Now I want to mention at the start, I haven't played the game and I know nothing about the setting, and some of the things in the adventure are quite setting specific, I think, but we'll talk about that as we go through. Now, Cy-Borg, as far as I can see, is a sci-fi take on Mörkborg, which is a really fun game. I had a session of that, well, probably about a year ago now, down at Bedford Gladiators. Yeah, and it's kind of, I suppose you describe it as, it's heavy metal fantasy, and it goes, well, it doesn't go to 11, I'd say it goes to about 12, or possibly even 13. Looks like it's a very rules-light system, similar to Mothership. It takes 5 or 10 minutes to build up a character, and basically you're rolling the d20 and you have to get 12 to succeed. And there's a few factors come into it. That seems to be pretty much it as far as the rules go. So a very accessible and very fast-playing system. It's put out by Free League Publishing. And I suppose if you think sort of cyberpunk, Matrix, Blade Runner, Robocop, then that's the kind of setting you're looking for. Now, that is why this is one of the first scenarios I picked for our adventures on Prospero's Dream, which is a big, well, it's a city in space, basically. We're playing a city campaign on board this huge space station, and the party have gone in undercover, as we said at the start there, to disrupt the drugs trade. So when I saw a scenario called Drug Raid, and it's a cyberpunky scenario, it was a no-brainer. Downloaded the PDF, and yes, it was easy to fit in to Mothership with a few little tweaks here and there. Now, Drug Raid is actually just one of 4 scenarios in a supplement called Down Bad. This is written by Christian Eichhorn with John Parker as editor, and it brings together 4 Cy-Borg adventures. The first is Drug Raid, where the party are hired to go in and dismantle this drug factory, this operation. The second scenario is called For-Profit Abduction, where the characters are hired again to kidnap I guess he's like a sort of wealthy industrialist who throws these lavish parties. The third one is called Tomb Scraper, which is something to do with the Queen of Hearts, I believe she's called. That has some sort of undead vibes about it. That looks quite interesting. And the final one is called Neon Borg, which is a Cy-Borg solo scenario. A nice little group of scenarios then you get in that booklet, and I can certainly see that Drug Raid and the abduction scenario fit very easily into the Mothership campaign. So far so good. However, here we come to my one and only complaint. If you're familiar with Mörkborg and similar, you'll know there is a very specific design aesthetic. This crosses over a little bit into Mothership as well at times, and I have a similar complaint in those cases. The layout is designed to represent the setting of the scenario. Okay, that makes sense. And there's also a bit of a sort of punk aesthetic. Now, that's something I know about because we did a fanzine back in probably about 79, 80. So I know what punk fanzines look like. And I do applaud it in some ways. However, at my advanced age now, I do find some things very difficult to read. When you've got like lime green text on a purple background or something, you know, that is a bit of a struggle. And the other thing I have is, as I say, I downloaded this on PDF via Drive-Through RPG. There's no way I can print this out, as you'll see from some of the pages coming up here. You know, I don't have enough money to buy all that ink. Now, to be fair, I don't know, and I should have checked if they have a print-friendly version. I know that a lot of modules do now, especially ones where the hard copy is white text on black. Then they'll often put out a print-friendly version as well, which is just basically your text. So if that's the case, that's fine. Other than that, really, that's my only complaint here. The information is easy to access, nice little sections for each room. The descriptions are brief, but there's enough there to get you going, to tell you what's going on. And the motivation of the various NPCs is very clear. Because I don't know the setting, there were some things I wasn't familiar with. I'm not sure what Kurgos it is and various other names. Obviously, if you're applying all this as part of the Cy-Borg setting, then I'm sure all that will make sense. But yeah, the information layout is good, and the map or maps for each of the scenarios is very good as well. They've kept them very clear, very easy to use. Okay, let's get into spoiler territory then, and find out what is actually going on in this scenario. So, our party is hired to go in and raid the factory, smash it up. They can gather information, which you hope they're going to do beforehand. So they can hack into the systems, they can maybe work out a way to get in, posing as officials of some sort, and they also have access to some former employees as well. Most of them are disgruntled employees, so they're quite happy to spill the beans about the workings of the factory, and also, vitally, one of them will let you know about a disused pipe that goes into the facility straight into the chem lab. So there's a nice easy route in. The twists begin as soon as the characters arrive at the factory. If they're hooked into the CCTV system, they see a poisonous gas seeping into the chem lab area, and that has a protective dome over it, but that dome is cracked and the gas is creeping out. People are lying on the floor, obviously in some sort of difficulty, and even more alarming than that perhaps, there's a character going around shooting the people working in the centre. So something is obviously going on. In the Cy-Borg setting, this character is Ohm Fuller, who is a Kurgos operative, I believe, and again, I don't know the background here, but my reading is that Kurgos, if they're a corporation or an outfit or a mob or a union, are looking to take over the factory and develop their own virus. So this green gas is part of that virus, and they're sort of testing it out by killing all the people in there. Then they're going to bring their own people in, because a freight train arrives a little later on, full of goons, as they're described, who are presumably there to take the virus away once it's been safely packaged up. So this is what the party have got to deal with. Not only the defence system of the factory itself, which includes some gun turrets at the front. We've also got this Ohm Fuller character going round. We've also got what are known as Kurgos mutants, because the way this gas affects people is they seemingly fall down and die, and a couple of minutes later spring up again with green or red or blue skin and go a bit, well, they're zombies, basically. Zombies, not zombies, but if you think of them as zombies, then you're not too far off. And all of this, I think, makes for a neat little adventure, because we've got the basic mission, and characters do like to plan and plot their mission. Get in, infiltrate, destroy, get out. But on top of that, we've got all these complications. We've got the gas that's going into the aircon system. We've got the guards and staff of the facility who haven't been affected by this gas yet. We've got Ohm Fuller and his crew of people running around trying to take over the place. And there's that element of the clock is ticking as well, because if this gas really does get out into the environment, obviously that's going to affect the local surroundings, the local neighbourhood. So you get a nice combination of things going on there. And there's a few other little details in as well that we won't go into so much, but the horror level is quite high in this one. So how did I alter this in order to fit into the Assault Team 5 Mothership setting, and how did the players do? Well, the first part was quite easy. This didn't need many tweaks to fit it into my setting. It was placed in a neighbourhood called Copper Lane, which is just adjacent to where the team are staying. And this is an area full of old junkyards, rundown industrial estates, sewage plants, that kind of thing. It's tucked out the way, as you might expect from a drug lab. This ties into our earlier scenario at Club Nebula, where the party went in to the club to find out that's where the jelly milk, the new drug, was being sold. The information they found there is what led them to the drug factory here, which is where the jelly milk is being made. There's a couple of odd things already. The jelly milk is being sold by the Aztec King gangs, but that factory is in Copper Lane, which is an area run by the Razor Dogs gang. So there's already this conundrum, how the Razor Dogs letting that factory continue if it's run by a rival gang. And the answer, of course, comes in form of the Bratva, who are the overseeing cartel or organisation running everything pretty much on Prospero's dream. So we've got this little situation here between these three groups as well. And the other change I made was Ohm Fuller, this guy who's going around shooting people. He is a member of a sect called Children of the Sun, which are a radical off-group of the esoteric Solarian Church, who are the big religious group on the Dream. They run the farm. So the backstory there was his basically trying to get hold of the jelly milk to take to his own group for certain uses. And as part of that, they've developed this gas, which is now being pumped throughout the facility in order to neutralise the people there. Now, in a way, it's difficult to review this in terms of what happened in Mothership, because the team didn't actually go into the factory. To be honest, it took a lot of prompting and almost pushing to get them to even look at the factory. They're very tied up with trying to create tension between the rival drug gangs. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And they got so much information about the factory that I thought was going to push them towards, right, we need to raid this place. But, you know, they still needed more. So they met the former employee who told them all about the shift system and how that works, how the staff are brought in and out, told them about the pipe, which is a simple and very safe way to get straight into the chem lab, told them a few other things as well. They did some more research, but they still needed quite a push to get to the factory. Well, they got to the factory by travelling on the mono, the rail system, and then cutting through all the back streets of Copper Lane, which involved an encounter with a group who tried to rob them. They got through that easily enough. They get to the factory. One group go to the top and hack into the CCTV systems. There they see Ohm Fuller shooting people and the gas escaping before the feed is cut. The other group had a plan to dismantle the monorail coming out of the factory, the train line. Basically, they wanted to blow a couple of stanchions on the monorail to stop the train getting out. Or, if the train did get out, it would crash. Then they could steal all the jelly milk on board. Unfortunately, the train hadn't even arrived at the station yet, so they were a little bit premature there. Now, what happened next surprised even me, because they saw the feed of the gas escaping and the crack in the protective dome over the chem lab. They saw On Fuller shooting some people, and then the feed is cut. I thought, right, at this point, they're probably going to blow the rail, then they'll get together and go in through the pipe, and we have ourselves a nice little adventure. No. What they decided to do was hack into those gun turrets that were guarding the gate, turn them inwards, and begin firing throughout the compound across the factory buildings. Okay, all right. They managed to succeed in doing that, and these machine gun turrets open fire, including firing into the chem lab building, which has the plexiglass protective dome around it that is got a little crack in it at the moment. I think you can see where this is going. The machine gun fire smashes the protective dome, and this poisonous green gas is now billowing out into the air of Prospero's dream, which is, as you will remember, a space station. The team then figured they'd done enough to disrupt the drug work that was going on here. They'd blown the monorail already, so they vacated. They went back to their base. They got back on the main train at the train station in full view of the CCTV cameras and headed back to their secret base. Where, on the local news now, they watch this situation unfold as this huge cloud of unknown gas spreads out across Copper Lane, where in one area you've got very densely populated estates. More than that, of course, the people who start inhaling this gas expire, but then rise up again as zombies stroke mutants and start attacking all and sundry, including the emergency services. So you can imagine the scenes that are appearing on the news feed. Tempest, the security force, get involved. They go in heavy-handed. There's people fleeing out of Copper Lane. The team went up on the roof of their building, and the streets around are just teeming with people. There's looting going on. There's shots being fired. There's all kinds of stuff happening. There's drones flying all over the place. Basically, it is what has become known as the biggest terrorist incident on Prospero's dream ever. The final death toll is just over 1,000 men, women and children. So, of course, this has some repercussions for the players, because at one point later on in the investigation by the authorities, their faces are flagged up on the CCTV and they're shown on the screen as people of interest, because this group of 5 characters is seen going into the Copper Lane area on or just before this incident at the factory. Now, the trains are very quiet at the moment because part of the backstory is the port is shut. That's under blockade because of various things going on there. So there's not the usual flood of workers and passengers and all that sort of stuff going to and from the spaceport. So they really stand out on an empty train. So they've got that going on. It also means they didn't get into the factory, and there were a lot of things in there that were clues leading to other threads on Prospero's dream. So we have Ohm Fuller and this fanatical religious group, for example. There was some quite startling information in there about the activities of the Aztec kings, and perhaps an explanation of why they have that name. There was the jelly milk itself. They'd get some idea of where it came from, perhaps, and how it was being produced and what was happening with it. And one or two other things as well. So they kind of missed a lot of those aspects, but in a sense that's all irrelevant, because now they're wanted for the biggest terrorist incident ever on Prospero's dream. They've got to get off the space station sharpish. So you might think that as a GM I'm throwing my hands up in horror in this and think, oh no, I spent 6 months developing Prospero's dream and all these intricate scenarios and connections and everything else. Well, no, not really, because one of the great things with the Mothership scenarios, Prospero's Dream in particular, as a setting, is it's left quite loose, quite nebulous, so it's very easy to shift. And as it happens, I did have in mind that if they were successful conventionally, without killing 1,000 people in that drugs raid, they would have to get off the station anyway because of this incident with the CCTV on the train, one or two other things as well. So my next scenario was already lined up in terms of them getting off the station, and well, that will happen next time. What happens there? It involves a crash landing on a planet and a secret, rather mysterious facility. Let's put it like that. But I think this is great because we're not playing D&D, right? And I'm not knocking D&D. You know, I played D&D for years, love it. But D&D is heroic adventure, or at least the way it's usually played is. Having also played things like Call of Cthulhu, you know, the slow, inexorable spiral down into insanity, I prefer games that have a bit more of that grit about them. Mothership, of course, has that in bucket loads. So I think it's good that you can have a situation where the players fuck up, where they make some mistakes, whether they think they have or not. You know, there's another thing going on there. There's going to be some consequences from their commanding officer, Naylor, right? I can't imagine he's going to be happy when he hears about this. So it could be that this will lead them to get him reassigned somewhere else. And I've got that many scenarios that I can dig through and say, oh yeah, what happens now is they're going to get reassigned to the arse end of the galaxy on this little shitty planet. But, now there's something happening there. So, you know, if you can pivot quickly and if you keep your options open as a GM, then this sort of thing, it's great. You might think it's disastrous. Oh, we're not on Prospero's Dream anymore. But now I can expand the narrative out into other areas. And the characters are acting like the characters. They're not on a noble quest, you know. They're not looking to progress to become a knight and then a commander and have their own castle and all this sort of thing. They're just trying to do the best with what they've got. They've got limited resources. They are under a lot of pressure. And there's imminent danger of death or worse at every corner. So, you know, this to me really plays into the narrative of the campaign. There we go then, there's my review of Drug Raid, a review for a scenario that we didn't quite play. It was a little bit of an unusual one, but I can see that there's enough there in that scenario. If you're running a sci-fi game, to be honest, even just a horror game, you know, you could fit this into a Cthulhu or pulp horror kind of setting, modern horror. It will work very well for that as well. Layout aside, everything's really nicely done, nicely thought out, and a lot of little twists and extra little horror bonuses along the way. And from what I've seen so far, the other scenarios in that booklet, down bad, certainly the abduction one, I'm going to be looking at using as well. That's it for today. Thanks very much for joining me again. As I mentioned, if you want to follow along with the campaign, then just click the Mothership playlist link below and you can catch up with all the activities, good, bad or indifferent, of the Assault Team 5 undercover operatives. And if you do encounter any strange green gas on your travels, please leave it alone. Just call the authorities.